Hey, I am Jack. Right now you can ask a chatbot to write your emails, generate a photo of your dog riding a skateboard, or have an AI assistant write code for you in real time. OpenAI just raised $40 billion in a single round. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta are spending over $300 billion this year building data centers. Nvidia's revenue is up 400%. There is an AI startup for everything from legal contracts to grocery shopping. If you work in tech, every meeting now has the word AI in it. But if you've been paying attention, you've also heard the other side. 42% of companies abandoned most of their AI projects in 2025. Only 6% of organizations using AI are seeing real financial impact from it. And there is a growing chorus of people asking a very reasonable question. Is this a bubble? Here is what almost nobody talking about the AI bubble seems to know. This exact thing has happened before, not vaguely, not as a loose metaphor, but almost beat for beat. 40 years ago, the world went through an AI revolution that was just as frenzied, just as well funded, and just as confident that the future had arrived. And then it collapsed so hard that researchers stopped calling their work artificial intelligence entirely, just to avoid the embarrassment. Let me tell you how it played out. The 1980s AI boom was built on something called expert systems. The pitch was simple. Take a human expert, a doctor, an engineer, a geologist, sit them down, extract their decision, making into a set of rules and put those rules into software. Now you've bottled expertise. The first big success was a system called XCOM, built at Carnegie Mellon for Digital Equipment Corporation. It checked computer hardware configurations for errors and saved the company $40 million in 6 years. Real product, real savings. Companies saw that number and lost their minds. By 1985, corporations worldwide were spending over $1 billion a year on AI. An entire industry appeared almost overnight. Specialized hardware companies built custom computers just to run AI software. One of them, Symbolics, became the first company to ever register a .com domain. Consulting firms went public on AI hype alone. And then the governments got involved. Japan launched a 10-year $400 million national project to build intelligent machines. The US panicked. DARPA started pouring $100 million a year into AI. Britain and Europe followed with their own programs. This was a global arms race, driven by the fear that whoever didn't invest in AI would be left behind. Sound familiar? And just like today, there were real products making real money. Expert systems were being deployed in hospitals, oil companies, and manufacturing floors. The technology worked within limits. The problem was that nobody wanted to talk about those limits. Expert systems were brittle. They worked perfectly inside the narrow domain they were built for, and made catastrophic errors the moment anything unexpected showed up. A medical system trained on blood infections couldn't handle a patient with a broken arm. Every new scenario required a human expert to sit down and manually write more rules, and the systems couldn't learn. You couldn't show them 10,000 examples and watch them get smarter. Every piece of knowledge was hand-coded, one rule at a time, by expensive specialists. Pretty soon, maintaining these systems cost more than the problems they were solving. The hardware side collapsed even faster. Those specialized AI computers from Symbolics. By 1987, regular desktop workstations from Sunday and Apple could run the same software at a fraction of the price. $500 million in specialized hardware market was wiped out in a single year. Japan's Grand Fifth Generation project wound down in 1992, having burned through its entire budget without a single commercially viable product. DARPA pulled its funding. The AI consulting firms went bankrupt. A New York Times headline called it Japan's lost generation. And then something remarkable happened. The whole field went into hiding. Researchers rebranded their work as knowledge systems, decision support, computational intelligence, anything that avoided the words artificial intelligence. For almost 2 decades, from roughly 1987 to 2006, AI was a dirty word in both academia and industry. The Turing Award, computing's Nobel Prize, didn't go to a single AI researcher between 1995 and 2010. The field didn't just shrink, it disappeared from polite conversation. Now here is the part I find most interesting. The ideas behind modern AI, the neural networks, the learning from data approach that powers ChatGPT and image generators and self-driving cars. Those ideas already existed in the 1980s. The backpropagation algorithm, which is still the backbone of how AI systems learn today, was published in 1986. Researchers knew that networks of artificial neurons could learn patterns from data. The math worked on paper, so why didn't we get ChatGPT in 1990? Three things were missing. Computers were roughly 1,000,000 times slower. There was no internet, so there were no large datasets to train on. And there was a nasty mathematical problem where the learning signal faded to zero in deep networks, making them impossible to train in practice. The core ideas were right, but the infrastructure to make them work was 20 years away. The 1980s AI boom bet on the wrong approach, hand-coded rules instead of learning from data. And the right approach couldn't run on the hardware that existed. I think the lesson here is uncomfortable. The popular take is AI failed before, but this time is different because we have the compute and the data. That is true, but the deeper pattern is this. Every AI era has been dominated by one paradigm. In the 1960s, it was symbolic reasoning. In the 1980s, it was expert systems. Today, it is large language models. The people inside the boom were absolutely convinced they found the right approach. And each time the dominant approach eventually hit a wall that nobody inside the boom could see coming. I am not predicting another winter, but I will say this, the people spending $1 billion on expert systems in 1985 weren't predicting one either. I'll see you in the next one.